And good afternoon, and welcome back to Thursdays with Charlie, episode 97, 28th of April, the last show in April 2022. Again, we remind you we're very happy that the Word and Song books have come in. So if you're interested in purchasing a copy, which has all the Sunday readings, as well as the hymns that we use, they're $5 each, and we have them available both at the church and down at the Riverside. This past Monday, as you know from Sunday Mass, we celebrated World Penguin Day. So there's been a giant penguin sitting in our office to decorate for this week. Hopefully you got to see it at Mass over the weekend as well. I kind of like the idea that certain days have different little designations to them. It makes it kind of fun to look things up and to enjoy them. We're right in the middle of the Easter season. As you know, Easter has a period of 50 days following it to kind of draw out the celebration of Easter, to spread it around and enjoy it for those 50 days. So the colors are white and the Easter lilies hang on until they can't hang on any longer. We have the great celebration of the Lord's Ascension, which comes up on the 40th day. And then the Easter season will end on Pentecost Sunday, the 50th day after the Lord's resurrection. In the course of all this, we also celebrate Mother's Day, and Mother's Day this year is on the 8th of May, the second Sunday of May. We honor our mothers. You'll notice in the bulletin last week and this coming weekend, we have the coupon for the Mother's Day Novena of Masses. If you'd like to fill it out, you can put it right in the collection, or you can mail it in, or you can return it to the church. You can list the names of your mother, your grandmother, your godmother, a special aunt, sister, other female friends or relatives. We'll honor them all at our 9 Masses of the Mother's Day Novena. What we do is we take the names that you submit to us, we place them in an envelope, and they sit on the altar here at the church for those 9 days of the Novena of Masses. Again, that form is in the bulletin this week. And certainly we encourage you to use it. And think of those people you're writing down there. It's amazing how when you sit down and you start thinking back, and you remember not only your mothers and grandmothers and godmothers and all sorts of special people that come to mind who have influenced you over your life. So that's the Mother's Day Novena. The St. John's Guild is running their Mother's Day project. There's information on that in the bulletin as well. They're helping a pregnancy center over in Bullhead City connected with Calvary Chapel. And they're looking for some specific items. Those are listed in the bulletin. Included in them are clothing for men, the fathers of these children. The 2 things they're not looking for are no diapers. They have plenty. And no children's toys. They're not taking toys at this time at the pregnancy center. But there are lists of other types of clothing that they would be interested in. Or if you'd like to make a monetary donation, that can be just placed in an envelope and marked St. John's Guild or Mother's Day Project, and we'll make sure it gets to them. You've noticed last weekend, and it'll be in again this weekend, a flyer in the bulletin, brightly colored flyer. Some are green, blue, yellow, red, orange, as the one I have in my hand, about a special event that's going to take place at our church in the Garces Center on Sunday, the 22nd of May. A friend of mine has written a movie script for a movie called The Yard Sale Movie. It's my friend who plays Dracula out at Universal Studios. The movie has a good moral message, and so I'm trying to help get it out there. We're trying to raise some funds for it. So we figured, what better would raising funds for a movie named the Yard Sale Movie be than to do some kind of a symbolic yard sale event. And so we're going to do that on the 22nd of May. Would like to encourage you to plan on being with us. The event's going to run from 3 p.m. until 6 p.m. on Sunday, the 22nd of May. we invite you to come. There'll be a live auction of some bigger prizes. There'll be what's called a tricky tray or a Chinese auction for some smaller prizes. There'll also be a regular yard sale that will be all inside, so don't worry about the heat. And we're looking for a couple of things. One, we'd like you to come. Please come. There's no admission charge. We're going to do some line dancing. We're going to have a disc jockey. We'll have some good music. It'll be a fun afternoon to be there with us and just celebrate with some friends and other people from our parish and our visitors as well. The other thing we'd like is we're looking for some donations for the prizes and for the yard sale itself. What I suggested over the weekend, and I think it's a good suggestion, you know that gift or two you got for your birthday last year or for Christmas that you know you're not going to use? Well, we can use it. Maybe drop it off. People have been really good this week, beginning on Monday morning, dropping off things after they heard about this Sunday. So we're going to have a lot of cool stuff, and we're looking forward to making it a fun afternoon. And the profits will be split between producing this movie, the yard sale movie, and the Garces Center for us. So we're looking forward to it. You'll hear more about that in the coming weeks, but we look forward to your support for that. This coming Sunday, when you come to Mass at the 8 o'clock Mass on Sunday morning, we're going to be celebrating First Holy Communion with 4 of our parish children. 4 of our children will receive the Lord in Holy Communion for the very first time this Sunday at the 8 o'clock Mass. It will be a beautiful celebration. We're glad to honor them and their parents and our religious education program for making this possible. I always think back of my own first Holy Communion. It was in May of 1955. That seems so long ago, but that's when I received the Lord in First Holy Communion the first time. And back then it was customary for everybody to be dressed from head to toe in white. So the girls wore these long white dresses and veils, and the boys wore white suits. I always comment that I looked like John Travolta from Saturday Night Fever in my white suit. And I enjoyed it very much. Eventually that suit got passed on, and my cousin Mark got to wear that suit for his first Holy Communion many years later. I don't know where the suit is now, but presumably it gets passed on down for those who want to wear white on that special day. It's kind of interesting. Remember back in the church history, we're kind of accustomed in our own mind that people receive First Holy Communion when they're about 7 years old, normally like second grade in grammar school. That wasn't the way it always was. Actually, up until about the beginning of the 1900s, you had to be almost into your teenage years before you could receive Holy Communion in a Catholic church. It was felt that you should understand more of what you're doing before you receive the Lord. There was a particular pope whose name was Pope Pius X, who at the early 1900s really decided, with a lot of consultation, but he made the decision that children should be allowed to receive Holy Communion once they can realize that the bread they receive in communion is different than the bread that their mother serves them at the table. As long as they can distinguish this is a different bread, it's the body of Christ, then the Pope said they would be old enough to receive communion. He said he called it the age of reason, and the age of reason in his mind was set at about 7 years old. So we owe it to Pope Pius X in the early 1900s for making it possible for children as young as the age of 7 to receive Holy Communion. Pope Pius X, a pope normally takes a different name when he becomes pope. His real name was Joseph Sarto. And there's a funny story about him. When he became pope, his mother was still alive. And the Pope in the story, and it's a true story, I believe, was showing his mother the ring, rather ornate ring that he received when he became Pope. and he was saying to his mother how beautiful and how wonderful it was. And his mother, according to the story, showed him her worn wedding band on her finger and said, if it weren't for this ring, you wouldn't have your ring. It's always the story I remember with Pope Pius X. But he's the one who made it possible, children as young as 7 to receive Holy Communion. As I mentioned, I kind of like the idea that different days have different designations, and there are actually lists. If you have some time someday, they're fun to look up online and see the lists that people have made up and found and discovered around the world of days that are special. This is in no way an exhaustive list, but it's one I happened to find this week. I already mentioned that Monday was World Penguin Day, and that was established in 1972 in Ridgecrest, California, where there are no penguins. So this year, for the 50th time, we celebrate a World Penguin Day. I haven't looked it up, but I suspect that Ridgecrest did it as kind of a joke, the idea that, well, we're going to celebrate Penguin Day in the middle of the desert. But whatever it is, it has stuck for 50 years. But there are some other days. Today, for instance, the 28th of April has a lot of designations. It's Great Poetry Reading Day. So maybe if you have a particular poem that you like, would be a good day to pull that out and maybe read that or share that with your children or grandchildren. My own liking is it's National Blueberry Pie Day. I hope to celebrate that this evening with a slice of blueberry pie if I can find it somewhere around our little town here in Paradise. The 28th of April today is also National Kids and Pets Day. Kind of going together there, Kids and Pets Day. And I'm going to honor that a little later on in the show. I have a unique way of honoring kids and pets that I think you might enjoy. It's also, among other things, it's National Superhero Day. I don't know who your favorite superhero might have been growing up. Mine was Superman. I always remember Superman, and I loved watching the TV shows. And I remember actually writing a letter to Superman when I was a really young kid and inviting him to come to my birthday party. And then Superman didn't show up at my birthday party. But it really didn't bother me because I figured he was out doing some good and saving somebody and fighting for truth, justice, and the American way. And that was probably more important than him making a stop at my birthday party. So I was actually pretty much okay with it. The 28th today is also Stop Food Waste Day. I don't know how much food we feel we waste, but it's something that we should keep our eye on. Remember, when you were growing up, I know my mother did it, we would always tell us, remember the starving children in Africa or in China or whatever. And I can remember looking at some food on my plate and saying, I really don't want to eat this. And she'd say, well, remember those starving children in Africa or China or whatever country. And I would look at the food and say, if you can wrap it, we can mail it, and we'll just get it off my plate that way. I don't want to waste it, but I didn't want to eat it either all the time. Continuing on, there's some other things. Today is also Take Our Sons and Daughters to Work Day. So it's I don't know how much that is honored anymore with so many people working from home, but Take Our Daughters and Sons to Work Day. There's also a variation of that, Take Our Kids to Work Day. I guess they wanted to make sure we were as inclusive as possible. Tomorrow, the 29th of April, Friday, is International Dance Day. There's actually a day set aside to honor dancing, International Dance Day. Someday I'll have to tell you the stories when I was growing up. Besides taking accordion lessons, my other liking as a young child was I took tap dance lessons, and for some 6 or 7 years I did tap dancing. I don't think I could pull much of that off anymore, but it was fun while it lasted, and I've got some cool pictures of various outfits and dance recitals and things like that. 29th, Friday, tomorrow, is also National Arbor Day. We honor trees and the fact that trees give us so much in the way of cleaning our air and providing us with food and sustenance, as well as shade, which is probably one of their big things that we appreciate them for out here in the desert. It's also National Hairball Awareness Day. Unless you have a cat, I don't think you have much experience with hairballs that pets have coughed up onto your carpet, but I think cats are still pretty much known for doing that. It's also National Peace Rose Day. The peace rose is a particular type of rose, a particularly beautiful one, and there's actually a day set aside to honor that. From my own way of thinking, tomorrow, Friday, is National Shrimp Scampi Day. As much as I want to have blueberry pie tonight to honor National Blueberry Pie Day, I want to have shrimp scampi tomorrow to honor Shrimp Scampi Day. Friday is also National Zipper Day. Who would think that we would have a day honoring that device that really makes possible so many things, zipper bags and zipper sacks, and our zippers on clothing as well. There is actually a day honoring it. Saturday, the last day in the month of April, the 30th, has a couple of particular designations. It's Honesty Day. I think every day should be Honesty Day, where we're truthful and honest in what we say or do, but the 30th of April actually has that designation. It's International Jazz Day. A lot of people enjoy good jazz music. I know my brother does. Whenever we're in the car, very frequently he'll put on a jazz station, and I'll get to enjoy listening to it. It's National Adopt a Shelter Pet Day. Notice a theme running around with kids and pets and Pet Day and National Adopt a Shelter Pet Day. A lot of people get some very beautiful pets and animals, and they save them. They're kind of like repatriating them, taking them home from an animal shelter. Speaking of animals, the 30th of April was also National Bugs Bunny Day, one of the most beloved animal creatures, animated creatures in our world. It's National Military Brats Day. I don't know how many people in our parish come from military families, but a military child was generally referred to as a military brat, and hopefully they are not going to celebrate too wildly on that day. From my own way of thinking, it's National Oatmeal Cookie Day and also National Raisin Day. Raisins and oatmeal cookies go together. So if I'm planning out my menu over here, I'm going to have blueberry pie tonight in honor of National Blueberry Pie Day. I'm going to have shrimp scampi tomorrow in honor of National Shrimp Scampi Day. And on Saturday, I'm going to want oatmeal and raisin cookies to honor National Oatmeal Cookie and National Raisin Day. Now, as I mentioned, a couple of those days refer to pets. Adopt a Shelter Pet Day, Kids and Pets Day. And I got to thinking this week, I wonder if I could make a list of all the pets that I've ever had in my life. And so I sat down, and over 2 days, I put the list together. I think it's fairly complete. I'm sure there might be an animal or two that I forgot in there, but I'm going to go back way into my past and just mention some of the pets that I've been associated with over the years. First pet that I sort of remember is not mine, but it was my parents. They had a dog. And a dog was kind of a mixed breed, I presume. I don't remember anybody ever saying it was a particular type of dog. I remember its name was Skipper. and Skipper was our family dog. There are several pictures of me in photo albums on the floor with this dog, so I know I was aware of the dog. I don't actually remember much about Skipper, but I do have the pictures. I was playing on the floor with this dog, so it was there when I was growing up. The first pet I really do remember, though, and I think of it as my pet even though it was my parents' first, was an Amazon parrot named Pal. P-A-L, Pal. We didn't name it Polly, we named it Pal. And I remember my parents telling me the story. They were married in 1934, and for their first anniversary in 1935, they decided they wanted to buy a pair of lovebirds. And they were going to have the pair of lovebirds as kind of a family pet for them. And they went to a pet store in Jersey City because we lived near Jersey City in those days. I wasn't around yet. And they tried to buy a pair of lovebirds. Well, the pet store didn't have a pair of lovebirds, but he did make an offer to them. He said, I have this African green parrot, and it was returned, and I can give you a good deal on it. And so my parents thought about it, and they said, we'll take the parrot. And so they brought the parrot home. They named him Pal, and the parrot replaced what they were going to get with the pair of lovebirds. That parrot was in the family well before I was. He was purchased in the winter spring of 1935, and he lasted until 1974. So he lasted a long time, almost 40 years in our family. He predated my arrival in the family by 10 or 12 years in there. My stories, I loved that parrot, and the parrot loved me. I think there was some kind of a relationship because the parrot was kept up in the spare bedroom, which became my room when I was born. So the parrot literally had the room before I did, and I became the person coming into the parrot's room to share. The parrot wasn't always nice to my parents. Sometimes he would bite them or whatever. But with me, he was very gentle. I could pick him up with my two hands. I could put him on the floor. He would stay by me when I did my homework. I could put him up on a table by me. I could scratch his head or scratch under his neck and make him feel happy and good. And he was always very good with me. And if anybody made a move like to go at me or something, he would come running over and be squawking and flapping his wings and even getting up there in age. He was definitely protective of me. I think he watched me grow up. One of my favorite stories about the parrot is when I was a kid and didn't want to get up to go to school, my mother would put a yardstick into the parrot's cage, pick him up on the yardstick, come into my bedroom, and hurl the parrot at me. And that would wake me up because the parrot, while it was very glad to see me, would have its claws out, and you would definitely feel the parrot landing on you, and you would want to get up and get away from it. The parrot also was an interesting visitor to me when I was in the seminary. The parrot missed me. Well, I missed the parrot too. And sometimes my mother on a Sunday when she would come up to visit would take the parrot in a cage, put it in the back of the car, and bring the parrot up to the seminary to visit me. He died actually at home just before I was ordained. I was home for a day off, and the parrot died. We always kind of felt that he knew I was not going to be living at home anymore, and it was his service years, I guess, would have been over. But we had him as a pet for more than 40 years, Pal the parrot. The next pet, the second one I remember, is a dachshund named Shotzi. One of those long dogs. It was actually a miniature dachshund, so it wasn't all that long. Very friendly, very cute, brown, very low and sleek. Loved to sit with you. You'd sit in a chair and he would somehow find a way to work its way between you and the chair you were sitting in, so it felt wedged in over there. we had the dachshund for almost 10 years. Shotzi was with us, and definitely remember Shotzi very, very well. The third pet that I remember is we got a rabbit. One year for Easter, my parents got me a live rabbit. I think this is where the idea of my mother buying me a stuffed rabbit when I was a priest every year came from. We got a rabbit, and the rabbit was a really big, white, fluffy rabbit. We named it Thumper because Thumper would go up with his feet against a door, and he would just pound on the door. And especially if you didn't want him in a room and you would put him like in another room, but there were people in the living room that he wanted to be with, he would just tap that foot against the door until you let him in. Thumper loved to be with people. He wanted to be where you were. And he loved me, my family, and even when we had company, he wanted to be part of it, be right in the room. I can remember once we had an elderly guest visiting my parents, and Thumper felt he was being ignored, and he just took a flying leap off the floor, went right through the newspaper onto this person's lap in our living room, and really surprised the visitor very much. So Thumper was my third pet that I remember very, very clearly. My fourth one was an alligator, which we named Al the alligator. And Al was bought when Mom and Dad and I drove to Florida one year, and we stopped at those little stands along the way, and this would have been back in the 1950s, and you could buy a little box, and in the box you would have either a live chameleon or a live alligator. And I wanted one. I wanted the alligator, not the chameleon. And so we bought the alligator, and my mother kind of resigned herself to the fact that it will probably die in a week or two, so not to worry about it. Well, the alligator didn't die, lasted for several years, at least 3 years, maybe longer than I can remember. And it kept growing. It went from being a little tiny alligator to being a foot-long alligator. And one of the things it liked to eat was ground beef, fresh ground beef. So my mother at the time would go to the butcher store and would want to buy 10 cents worth of ground beef. And when the butcher said to her one day, "Lady, why are you buying 10 cents worth of ground beef? Why don't you buy a pound?" And she said, "It's for my alligator my son has, and it likes fresh ground beef." And the butcher looked at her and said, "Well, okay, lady, if you don't want to tell me why you're buying it, that's okay." But said, "No, my son has an alligator." And that alligator was so cute, used to like to go for walks, so I got a little watch band, and I made a collar for it. And I would have a rope, and I would walk my alligator. For a couple of years, I won most unusual pet contest every year in the playground competition in North Arlington. It was always an enjoyable pet. He liked to be with me. He liked to be on my lap. I loved it when I would scratch under his jaws over here and kind of relax him. He would almost go into like a trance when you would pet him like that way. And he lasted for several years. I think at least 3 years I had Al, the alligator. Fifth pet was a pigeon. A pigeon who just ended up on our porch one day. We named it Doc the pigeon. And Doc just wanted to hang around people. And so Doc came into the house with us, and then we figured, well, it's kind of odd to have a pigeon in a house. Maybe we should try to put him outside and maybe he'll go away. Well, he didn't want to associate with other pigeons. He didn't want to leave. You'd put him outside, he'd sit for a while, then he'd walk back in. He wanted to be inside the house. He'd wait for you to open the door. When my father or I were cutting the grass, we had a riding lawnmower. He wanted to sit on your shoulder as you cut the lawn. If the dog was out, we had the dachshund at the same time we had the pigeon. If Shotzi was out walking around, Pigeon wanted to be right with the dog walking around. Doc was extremely friendly. He also had an annoying habit of somebody was talking to me or I'd be outside and he saw it. He wanted to be part of it, so he would fly over and he would land either on my shoulder or on the visitor's shoulder, and that would really surprise the visitor. You know, I'm thinking back with the alligator, another funny story with Al is, as Al got to be a foot long, we didn't know where to keep him very easily, so we kept him in the bathroom. And at the time, our house had only one bathroom. It was upstairs at the top of the staircase. And so we would put Al in the bathtub. And we'd put his food in there, and he would be able to sit there. And then when somebody wanted to take a bath, you would go upstairs, remove the alligator, take your bath, clean the tub, and put the alligator back. Well, we had company one time, I remember, and the guest asked, "Where's the bathroom?" And my mother said, "Oh, it's upstairs at the top of the stairs." And knowing that Al was in the tub, and you would see the tub when you went in the bathroom, my mother said, "Don't mind the alligator." And the person just laughed and went upstairs, and you could almost count down, well, how long is it going to take them till they notice? And then we heard the scream, you know, "There's an alligator in here." Sure enough, they had seen Al. The sixth pet I remember was a squirrel named Pete. I don't know why we named the squirrel Pete, but we did. And the squirrel hung around outside, would love to come into the house, would love to take peanuts and eat them from your hand, would sit in your lap, was always very, very friendly. We think we misnamed it because later, the first year we had the squirrel there, it lived outside. It never lived in the house, but would come in, knew where the peanuts were kept. But Pete brought two little squirrels with him, so I suspect that Pete wasn't a him, Pete was a her, but we never changed the name. But we were kind of honored that he brought the two little ones. I guess not with him, but with her. Seventh pet that I remember was a hamster, a little brown hamster named Harry. I don't know why we picked Harry, but we did. And Harry was a cutest little, cuddliest little thing. The only thing was my mother disliked Harry immensely. She felt it was a rat. She just said that little rat and like that. And it would scare her. It would just, if we were out of its cage, it would come to me, but it would seemingly know that it should hide from my mother and wait till she didn't suspect it was around and then leap out at her. It kind of enjoyed that. We had Harry for a number of years. The eighth pet I remember is a parakeet. We had a green parakeet, which we named Zeke. I don't know why we picked some of these names that we did, but Zeke was a very friendly parakeet, loved to sit on your shoulder, would not talk, but would whistle, whistled like crazy. The ninth pet I remember is one Easter, long after Thumper had long gone, we got a duck for Easter, a baby duckling. It was so cute, we named it Daffy. That was appropriate because the cartoon Daffy the Duck. But Daffy, again, loved to be with people. If you were sitting in the living room, it wanted to sit on your lap. If you were out on the patio, it wanted to be right with you there. Daffy, when he was a little duckling, was cute, but Daffy became a rather large, heavy duck, and it would love to cuddle up with you and jump on you, and when it was a duckling and it did it, it was kind of funny. When it was this very heavy, big, large duck, and it jumped up on your lap, it would really surprise you. And it still wanted to cuddle, put its beak underneath your neck and snuggle with you. Those were all the pets that I can remember that had specific names. But there were others that I can remember having, but either we didn't name them or I don't remember the names. There were a couple of little turtles. I remember them in a little turtle pond, a glass bowl that had a raised center on it that they could go up out of the water onto. Turtles didn't seem to last very long. They were there. I can remember them being around. I don't remember them being terribly playful or talkative or anything like that, but they were there. Same with the goldfish. I remember having a goldfish. I don't remember naming it, but I remember where I got it from. I went to a carnival and they had one of these contests where you had ping pong balls and you tossed them out onto a whole table full of goldfish bowls. And if you got a ball in the goldfish bowl, you got the goldfish. And I won it. And I came home with the goldfish. I don't think it lasted very long. Actually, I don't think we went more than one particular little can of goldfish food at all. Interesting pet we had was a bat. The 12th pet I had, it fell out of a tree and it landed on the ground. And I was walking along and there was this bat. And it was a young bat apparently, and it was kind of squaggling around on the ground. And we picked it up and we put it in a bird cage and brought it home. We had a spare cage, I think, left over from the parakeet, and got it in there. And I don't think we ever named it, but I remember thinking it was particularly cute, even though now when I think back what a bat looks like, I don't associate the word cute with a bat. But we did have the bat for several months living inside our house, and we eventually we let it out of the cage, and it did fly away back into the wild. 13th pet I remember is a monkey. It was not our pet originally. My uncle had bought it, and after a while either didn't want to or couldn't take care of it, and we inherited it. So we inherited a monkey. As I recall, it was something called a squirrel monkey. We had him for a few months around the house. I don't remember a name at all. The 14th one was a minor bird. I don't remember a name, but I do remember it talked. I don't know what it said, but it would repeat what you said. A very great capacity for repeating, but it was a black minor bird was around. We had a blue jay. The 15th pet was a blue jay. Never came inside, but it hung around the house, and if you'd go outside, it wanted to be near you, and we would feed it. You could feed it from your hand, and the blue jay was always very loud. I mean, it made its presence known in your yard. Somewhere along the way, my 16th pet, I remember a pregnant cat. I never wanted a cat for a pet, but this one just kind of showed up. And I remember we took care of it while it was pregnant, and it had some kittens. And then I can't quite remember, what happened. I think we gave the kittens away, and I think the mother just wandered away, or maybe we gave her away when we gave the kittens. The last actual pet that I remember was when I was a priest in Norwood, just before I came out here to Nevada. We had a flock of wild geese, and I always loved the geese to be around the rectory. So I would go out and I would buy corn. I would also buy loaves of bread and tear it up into little pieces. And every morning on my way out to church for Mass, I would go out and I would feed the geese. And sometimes there'd be 3 or 4 or 5 geese. During seasons when they were migrating, I would sometimes end up with maybe 25 or 30 geese on the rectory yard over there. And it really was interesting. I kind of loved just being out there with them. They never came in the house. They were always outside geese, but it was interesting to have them around. So those are the pets that I can remember in honor of Kids and Pets Day and Adopt a Shelter Pet Day. Little reminder, we won't have a show next week because I'm going to be going out to visit some of the rural parishes and missions. I'm going to Tonopah to see St. Patrick's Church. Then I'm going to go down to Dyer to see Our Lady of Guadalupe Mission. And then I'm going to go to Round Mountain to see St. Barbara Mission. So I'll see 3 of our rural parishes. Going to leave next Tuesday right after Mass, and I won't be back until late on Thursday. So I'll be able to tell you in the show the following week about visiting some of our Las Vegas diocesan missions. Looking forward to that very, very much. Meanwhile, it's time for Pascal sort of our parish pet, to come on down and join us. And very appropriately, a little quote about animals. Animalia Fidelia et Amabilia Sunt. Animals are loyal and lovable. Good thought for the day. Be kind to animals. They're God's gift to us in so many, many ways. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. God bless.